from the GTO that started a revolution to the Trans Am that saved a movie and the Aztec that defined Breaking Bad. 84 years of American soul, gone overnight. This is every Pontiac ever made. The Rebel is born. Pontiac Series 627, the brand that was born to kill its own brother. A 186 cubic inch inline six, 40 horsepower, $825. In 1926, most cars in this price range only had 4 cylinders. Pontiac gave America 6 for the price of 4. It sold 76,742 units in its first year, a record that stood for decades. GM created it as a companion to the Oakland brand, but Pontiac was so successful it literally ate Oakland alive. By 1932, Oakland was gone. Pontiac was here to stay. Pontiac Chieftain, the car that waited 6 years for a heart transplant. A 287 cubic inch V8, 173 horsepower, $1,590. Post-war America wanted speed, but GM made Pontiac wait until 1955 for a V8 to protect Buick sales. When the engine finally arrived, Pontiac sold 554,090 cars in a single year, their best ever. It featured a lit-up hood ornament and enough chrome to be seen from space. One engine took the brand from reliable to radical overnight, Pontiac Bonneville. The most expensive Pontiac ever made, and the fastest. A 347 cubic inch V8 with mechanical fuel injection, 310 horsepower, $5,782. In 1957, fuel injection was space-age tech, and Pontiac only built 630 units to prove they could outrun Cadillac. It cost more than a Starfire and nearly as much as a Series 62, but it delivered 0 to 60 in 8.1 seconds when most cars needed 15. Each dealer got exactly one. It was a rolling middle finger to every luxury brand that thought Pontiac was just for bankers. They invented muscle, Pontiac Wide-Track, the optical illusion that saved a brand from extinction. A 389 cubic inch V8, 300 horsepower, $2,390. In 1959, Pontiac was seen as a brand for grandpas, so they pushed the wheels 5 inches further apart. Detroit laughed and called it a marketing gimmick. Then the sales came in. Pontiac jumped from 6th to 3rd place in America overnight. It wasn't just wider, it was more stable in corners than anything else on the road. The Wide-Track didn't just look better, it made Pontiac the performance division of General Motors for the next 40 years. Pontiac Grand Prix Generation 1. The car that invented personal luxury by stripping away the chrome. A 389 cubic inch V8, 303 horsepower, $3,490, Pontiac took the big heavy Catalina and gave it a cleaner look, bucket seats and a tachometer on the dash. It sold 30,195 units in its first year, nearly triple what Oldsmobile managed. It was the first car built for the man who wanted the speed of a muscle car but the interior of a private jet. By 1963, sales quadrupled. Pontiac didn't just build a new car, they built a new class. Pontiac GTO Generation 1. The car built by a team of outlaws who broke every rule at GM. A 389 cubic inch V8, 325 horsepower, $295 option package. GM had a strict ban on putting big engines in small cars. So Pontiac's engineers lied. They told the bosses it was just a trim package for the lemons. By the time GM found out, Pontiac had already sold 32,450 units, over 6 times what they were allowed to build. It featured a Hurst shifter and enough torque to melt tires on demand. They named it after a Ferrari, but it was built for the drag strip. The muscle car era didn't start with a plan, it started with a heist. Pontiac Firebird. The car GM gave Pontiac as a consolation prize, and they made it better than the original. A 326 cubic inch V8, 250 horsepower, $2,666. While Chevy built the Camaro to be a brute, Pontiac gave the Firebird a rubber Endura front bumper that didn't dent, and an engine sat lower for better handling. 82,560 units sold in year 1. It was the executive's muscle car, fast enough to win a drag race but refined enough to park at a country club. Pontiac GTO Judge. the cartoon character that started a street war, a 400 cubic inch Ram Air 3V8, 366 horsepower, $332 option package. Pontiac named it after a comedy sketch on TV to mock the Plymouth Roadrunner. It came in carousel red, which was actually bright orange, with a massive rear wing and the Judge decals. Only 6,833 were built in 1969. It was a rolling middle finger to the establishment, a car so loud and fast it made the government want to ban fun. Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, the birth of a legend that almost nobody wanted. A 400 cubic inch V8, 335 horsepower, $725 option. Pontiac paid the SCCA $5 per car just to use the name Trans Am. It featured a heavy-duty suspension and a massive hood scoop that actually worked. Only 697 units were built, and only 8 were convertibles. It was a sales disaster in 1969, but it set the blueprint for the most famous car of the next decade. The rarest Trans Am ever made is now worth more than a fleet of Ferraris. The peak and the crash. Pontiac Trans Am SD 455, the last dinosaur. In 1973, insurance and the EPA were killing muscle, but Pontiac engineers went rogue and built a race engine for the street. A 455 cubic inch V8, 290 horsepower, $6,000. It had a reinforced block and forged pistons meant for the track. Only 252 units were made in '73. It was the fastest car in America during a year when performance was supposed to be dead. Pontiac didn't go quietly. They went out screaming. Pontiac Firebird Bandit, the movie star that saved a dying brand. A 6.6-litre V8, 200 horsepower, $5,456. Muscle was supposed to be dead in 1977, but Smokey and the Bandit changed everything. Sales nearly doubled in 1 year, hitting 117,108 units by 1979 and crushing the Camaro. The Screaming Chicken hood decal became a global icon. It wasn't Pontiac's fastest car, but it made every kid in America want to outrun the law. Pontiac Can-Am, the one-year wonder that was killed by a broken tool. A 400 cubic inch V8, 200 horsepower, $6,396. Pontiac took the mid-sized Lemons, added the Trans Am's engine and gave it a shaker hood and tricolor stripes. It was an instant hit with 5,000 orders in the first few weeks. Then disaster struck. The mold used to make the unique rear spoiler broke. Instead of fixing it, Pontiac panicked and cancelled the entire project after only 1,377 units were built. A car that could have saved the mid-sized muscle era died because of a piece of broken plastic. Pontiac Trans Am Turbo, the car that tried to replace muscle with a hairdryer. A 4.9-litre turbocharged V8, 210 horsepower, $9,223. As emissions killed the big blocks, Pontiac turned to technology 40 years too early. It featured a 3-stage turbo light on the hood that glowed as boost climbed. Only 9,704 units were built in 1980. It starred in Smokey and the Bandit 2, but the tech was fragile and the power was sluggish. Pontiac tried to build the future, but they just proved there was no replacement for displacement. Rebadged, forgotten, and Fiero. Pontiac Fiero, the mid-engine miracle that engineers lied to build. A 2.5-litre 4-cylinder, 92 horsepower, $7,999. To get the budget, Pontiac told GM it was a fuel-sipping economy car. Then they gave it a rust-proof plastic body and a go-kart chassis. By the time it got the V6 and GT body it deserved, GM killed it. 370,168 units sold. It went from catching fire in 1984 to being a Porsche killer in 1988. Pontiac finally built a winner, then deleted it the moment it started winning. Pontiac Firebird formula, the wolf in sheep's clothing. A 5.7-litre LT1 V8, 275 horsepower, $17,995. It used the exact same engine and transmission as the Corvette, but hid it inside a base model Firebird body. While the Trans Am got the flashy spoilers and fog lights, the formula was 100 pounds lighter and just as fast. In 1998, it upgraded to the legendary LS1 engine, pushing 305 horsepower and hitting 0 to 60 in 5.2 seconds. It was the fastest way to humiliate a Mustang while looking like a rental car. Pontiac Grand Prix GTP Supercharged. the family sedan that hunted sports cars on the weekend. A 3.8-litre supercharged 5.6, 240 horsepower, $24,295. It used a Roots-type blower to deliver instant torque that would spin the front tires at 40 miles per hour. 0 to 60 in 6.6 seconds was faster than a Mustang GT of the same year. It featured a head-up display, hoodie, and a performance shift button that made it the ultimate sleeper. It was the last time Pontiac made a front-wheel drive car that actually felt dangerous. Pontiac Firebird Trans Am WS6, the Batmobile of the 90s. A 5.7-litre LS1 V8, 305 horsepower, $26,395. It featured the aggressive Ram air hood with 4 nostrils that inhaled the road. While the Camaro looked like a wedge, the WS6 looked like a predator. 0 to 60 in 5.0 seconds flat. It was the ultimate expression of Pontiac's excitement era, loud, wide, and faster than a Corvette for 2/3 the price. It didn't just drive, it intimidated everything in the rearview mirror. Too little, too late. Pontiac Aztek, the ugliest car in the world that became a TV legend. A 3.4-litre V6 185 horsepower, $21,445. Designed by a committee, it featured a built-in tent and a removable cooler for a center console. It sold just 27,793 units in year one, missing GM's targets by half. It was a decade ahead of the lifestyle SUV trend, but the bizarre plastic cladding killed it on arrival. It took Breaking Bad's Walter White to finally make it cool 10 years too late. Pontiac GTO, the Australian monster in a business suit. A 6.0-litre LS 2V8, 400 horsepower, $32,495. Pontiac imported the Holden Monaro to save their performance image. It hit 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds, faster than a Ferrari 348. Only 40,808 units sold. Critics hated the rental car styling, but the Corvette engine under the hood made it the ultimate 2000s sleeper. It was the fastest Pontiac ever built, hidden in their most boring body. Pontiac Solstice, the sexy roadster that arrived just as the lights went out. A 2.4-litre four-cylinder, later 2.0-litre turbo, 177 to 260 horsepower, $19,995. It was the first car in decades to make Pontiac look beautiful again. It featured a curvaceous body that won design awards and a chassis built for curves. Only 65,724 units were made. While the base was slow, the GXP version was a legitimate track weapon. It was the baby Corvette fans had begged for, but it died when GM killed the brand in 2010. Pontiac G8 GXP, the four-door Corvette that served as Pontiac's final masterpiece. A 6.2-litre LS 3V8, 415 horsepower, $39,995. It used the Corvette's heart and an optional 6-speed manual. It hit 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, the most powerful production Pontiac ever. Only 1,829 units were built before GM shuttered the brand. A world-class sedan that could outrun a BMW M5 for half the price. Pontiac finally built the perfect car, then went out of business. From a banned muscle car in 1964 to a world-class masterpiece cancelled in 2009, Pontiac never played by the rules. A rebel brand that broke every GM law to invent an entire American era. GTOs on the drag strip, Trans Ams in the movies, the roar of a Ram Air V8 that defined a generation. You saw them on every street in America. Now you know every story. Pontiac didn't fail. It was executed. Hit that subscribe button and let's explore more legendary machines together.